Okay. Okay, let's pick up here. HaMitzvah Hashesh B'chamishim. 56. Loisa said 56. He his hilnu mehashlim im amon umoyev lo'olam. So it's a very interesting thing. There's an assay to send out and call for shalom before you start a war. Okay. And there's a difference in Minyan HaMitzvos and in Mishnah Torah, whether it applies to Milchemes Mitzvah or not. The Rambam in Sefer Mitzvahs, mashma, it's only Milchemes Rishus. The Kuf Sadi, the Rambam changes Kuf Sadi, the formulation of the Mitzvah Mishnah Torah, and the Kriya Shalom applies to all Milchemes. Whatever it is, Milchemes Amon Umoyav, which is Milchemes Rishus, there still is no Shalom. So I guess the Asay doesn't exist. And it's just the opposite. There's a lav. And the Ram is going to V'im. He says, Moshe B'yalnu Mitzvah Shaleh, Chutz me'amur u'moyav shlo nisnaheg imohem aminig hazeh. So this is going to be interesting. It cancels the assay. And not only cancels the assay, there's a lav. Okay? We'll see. Hishis hilnu mehashlim im amon umoyev lo'olam. Okay? Anytime you go to war with Amon and Moav, and there is a lav to call out and send for shalom. V'zeh sho'akel yis'aleh kvar tzivonu kishenovoi lilichem al ir. Then we go out, this is translated, to fight against a city. Now here in the translation, it's not there is here in Kapach and in Ibn Eov, you see in Ibn Tibban it says Kishenovu lilochem al ir, but in both in Kapach and Ibn Eov, which was an earlier translation and probably a better one, Kishenitzo al hayos, that's Ibn Eov, and in Kapach shebitzurenu al orim. So we'll see this complicates the issue because it says, you see, the question is, are you putting the city in a siege before you call out to shalom, or only afterwards? Okay. If you look in the Psukim, the Torah, in Perek Chof, you get the impression the siege is only afterwards. If they don't answer the shalom from the Al Muchekim, then you make a siege. In here, at least according to the most of the translations, it seems to say Shnovoy. It seems you're making the siege Shenovo lilochem aliyah, but the other ones is Shenitzo ala yolos uvitzurenu ala olim. You make a siege at the beginning, and the Torah says you make a siege only afterwards. Okay. So and that's the pasuk. Let me just read the psukim. Ki sikrav El Ir, this is in Dvorim Chof, from Pasuk Yud to Yud Beis, Ki Sikrav El Ir, Lilochem Oleho, because El Shalom, Vohoyim Shalom Tancho, Foscha Locho, Vohoye Kol Ho'om, Anim Sabo, Yiyu Lamas, Locho Lamas, Vavaducho. Vim Loi Sashlim Imcho, Viosa Imoch Mulchomo, Vitzalto Leo. So it seems that the siege is afterwards. Okay. And even more interesting, and this I'm not getting involved in, okay? But you get the impression that im loy tashlum imcha vi also imcha milchama. So without all else, so what they have to shoot the first shot. They say no, we want to go to war. So then you can't go to war. You have to wait until they shoot the first shot. Just look at the psukim. You have to interpret. I'm not getting involved in this because I'm not looking to the lav over here is a lav that you don't send out the show. Okay, but in terms of mitzvah kupsadi, you have to understand. Is it really clear? I didn't see anything wrong about this, but l'chayr pash the psukim is that they have to take the first shot. V'tzal to olel. So that's very strange. It says v'tzal to olel only if they decide not to answer shalom, and the Ram's mashma that they do, at least according to most translators, they do a siege even before you get started. So I think that the answer is simple, but the question I think is a real question. Okay, the Sifri says in Piska Reish in Pasha Shoftim, V'tzato leo af lahar ivo, af lahatzmio, af lahamisa b'misas tachaluyim. That you put on a siege in order to kill them, to make them die of thirst or hunger or to I guess that they'll get sick. I'm not sure why the siege, is going to help get people get sick. Okay, but all I would tell you is, why is the Sifri saying this? So I assume what's happening is the Sifri is assuming that there is a siege before, but there's a difference between the first siege in the Kriyas Shalom, which is just to surround the city, and the second siege is to choke the city. Okay? And I assume, why would the Sifri have to say all this? Because the assumption is there are two sieges. And that the Ram is picking up and says the siege before. And I want to suggest something. I'm not sure if it should be with trepidation or without, that the siege is important at the beginning also. Because it has to be clear when you send out to Shalom that if you're not going to be, you're not going to be mashlim, if the people in the city are not going to answer in the positive, they're ready to make shalom, that there's going to be a war. And if you're just sitting 20 miles away, you say, listen, make peace with us or we'll go to war. That's not a serious threat to force them to make peace. And you need a serious threat, and that's the surrounding of the city. That's what I would suggest. So that's what Rama means over here. Okay, now let me start like this. Let's go back. Okay, let's start before we go over here. If you go back to Mitzvah Kuf Sadi, and you look in the Arabic, the Judeo-Arabic, you'll see that the Ram calls the mitzvah what we normally call shrana, which is like a din. Okay, it's not normally the Rambam in Mitzvah says amar, which is the Arabic for a command or a positive command. Okay, so it means that sivi muchler tells you eat, drink, do something. Okay, and each asay is telling you to do something. But for example, when it comes to the mitzvahs, which Ram counts of tumah, tumas nevela, tumas mes, tumas this, tumas that, It doesn't tell you to do anything. It's just a religious law. And that the Ram calls Shirana. And somehow, whatever it is, not for us now, that gets the minyan mitzvahs. The Ram says mitzvah kupsadi is a Shirana. That's what he says. But the odd thing is over here, when the Ram cans it over here, v'zeh shokel yis'ala v'atzivonu, there the Rambam translate the Arabic is amar amalno, means it's a command, a clear-cut command, a what you call in Hebrew a tzivui muchlak. It's not a shrana. So what the Ram's vacillating about this, the truth is, in our forest Adom, he says shrana, and then he says amar right afterwards. He does the same thing in Kupsadi. So, maybe it's nothing. Maybe once he makes a clear statement that it's really a din, you can call it a tzivui. Or there's another approach, which I think is more and more profound, because there's something very strange about mitzvah kupsadi. Because you read the parasha, you see a haforas nedarim is a shrana, is a din. And haforas nedarim, there's no tzivui in the Torah for the Ab or the Baal to make the nedarim. It's only a din. The din is that if the Baal or the Ab or made for nedarim b'yom shamai, so the neder is null and void. Okay, but there's no din, there's no tzivui to do anything. You can imagine that the fact that Torah says the dinim is that we should act according to the dinim. But here, in the whole concept of milchemes rishus, there's no tzivui, and that's what kupsadi is. It's the din of milchemes rishus. But however, if you make a decision to have a milchemes rishus, the Torah has clear commands. So it's a very strange thing. The umbrella, the overriding principle is a din, but the various subcategories within the mitzvah are commands. The Torah says v'tzarto aleho, or it says that you're supposed to kill kol zocho if they're not mashlim, and if they are mashlim, v'hoy l'chol ha'maslim avducha. So each one of them, you have to ask yourself: is it an obligation or is it a heter? And to get the impression, Rambam, that it's a clear obligation. We'll see more about this, okay? But you see, here you have the overarching mitzvah is called Milchemes Rishus, but under it that's only a din. But in each case, in each situation, there are tzivuyim what to do, because you're supposed to call out for shalom. You have to do it. It's not, in other words, the decision and the whole din of Milchemes Mitzvah is a complete rishus, and it's a din. But once you get involved in the din, there are clear commands. Okay? And if you recall, I mentioned to you that the Minchas Chinuch is not aware of the Arabic in terms of, it's called, but he talks about what's the difference between a din and a mitzvah that we know it. Okay, let's say Afos Dorim, and the mitzvah that we know, he says that in the mitzvah that we know, there's a kiyum. In Tumas Nevela or Tumas Mes, there's no kiyum. But one can ask themselves, when you're in the middle of Milchemes Rishus, okay, you make a decision, there's a Milchemes Rishus, and you have all the din of Milchemes Rishus, as the Ram says in the beginning of Perek A of Hilchos Malachim. But once you're in it, there is a mitzvah, maybe with a kiyum, to be Korei L'Shalom. And if they answer positively, maybe there's a mitzvah of V'hoy L'chol Bas V'avaducha. And that's what Ram seems to say, that you have to do it. All the Rishonim Teisin Avodah Zarah Chafov Beis, Toisorosh, Avodizor Chafov Ma'al, say it's a heter, but no. But the Ram seems to say that there's an obligation. The question is, the Haligus Kol Zocho, is that a heter or just a chiyuv? And we can go through on that, but it may be that the word mitzvah over here is coming to tell you that they're kiyumim over here. Because here, the tzivonu is referring to the Kriyas Sholem. It's not about, he's not going back to Mitzvah Kuf Sadi and telling you there's such an obligation, there's such an idea of war, of Mechemes Rishus, and that's a mitzvah, it's a din. No, he's saying, so there is a tzivui muchlot to call out for shalom. And this is what the Ram is referring to. He's not referring to mitzvah kuf sadi, which is the broad umbrella, which is called the din. He's referring to the kriyas shalom. Okay. Now, just a point, okay? I remember the Rav told us from his father, Ramesh Halevi Soloveitchik. I'm just a little bit, let's say, what's that guy say? I'm not sure that that's a proper quote, but I'll tell you why. The Rav, I think, increases. He was talking when Atem going, whatever it is. He was talking about the intellectual honesty in the family, and he says when father was mesupik, if it was his or the Zayd Rab Chaim, he said it was Rab Chaim because he didn't want to take credit, when it didn't come to him. And I think the same thing with the Rav, where he's mesupik, whether it was his or father, he said it was father. And I'll tell you why I say it sounds almost like no. I'll tell you why I say this. There was a letter. Okay, I want to be frank with you. I don't remember if we published it or not. I can't tell you. Okay, but I remember the letter. Okay, there's a letter that the Rav wrote to his father discussing the Machlokes in the Rambam and the Bahag, whether you count the mitzvah of the first mitzvah, whether it's the belief in God or the knowledge that God exists. I'm not getting involved in the exact translation of the mitzvah, but in that piece, the Rav discusses whether Emunah might be just a din, and in Mitzvas there are dinim or in Yonei Atera. In Bekitza is he writes a letter to father saying over the piece that he attributed to father when he was learning with us. So so I'm mesupik over here that maybe it's the Rav's piece. That's why I say that. But whatever it is, the Rav said, and that I didn't see there, but he said from father another thing, that this idea, the father called it these dinim in Yonei Atera. The Rambam calls it shrana. It's a din religious law. Okay. So he said that his father said only in Mitzvas Aseh you can imagine that religious law could be in the minyan. But in Mitzvas Aseh, there's just a din. You can't call a din a lois aseh. That's what he said. He didn't explain why. But, if you assume, which I'm not sure you should, but I assume so, whatever, that the assumption in a din is that if the Torah writes a din, it's an assumed command that the Torah kilu commands you to act according to religious law. Okay, so there could be the Torah tells you the dinim of tuma, of tumas mes, or tumas nevela, tumas ras. So you act according. You're supposed to act according. There's an assumed command. So I could imagine that every shrana, every religious law, every din is an assumed command. But mitzvahs loisa said have isuim and a command not to do something. And I can't imagine how you could interpret a din in the Torah to be a command not to do something. So what he said and what he assumed, that there's no religious law, there's no lavim, I think it makes a lot of sense. Okay. Now, just to tell you that there might be another case that you might have a shurana, the overarching principle is a din, but there might be command to do X, Y, and Z once you have it, okay? I think the best example is in Saras Odom, because you look in the mitzvah, Saras Odom is Kof Aleph, Kof Beis, I'm not sure, one second, okay, let's find it. Yeah. Kuf Aleph. Mitzvah achas umeya, hatzivish nevinu, liyois odom mitzoyer mitame. Okay. Here he says it's in Amal, but I think in Shurish Shmini, excuse me. It's Shurish Shvi. Shurish Shvi, he says that I think Saras is Shurana is a din. Okay, but say all these are dinim. I think in the Minyan HaKotzer also, Liyois Mitzoyer Mitame. It's a din. Umitzazu koleles klal dinei tzaras odem. Ma shemimenu tomei, ma shemimenu torah. Uma shemimenu tzorch hezge, o she'enu tzorch. Uma shetzorch im hezge giluach. Kaloim tilachas hanesek. L'cher tilachas hanesek, his galoch is a clear tzivui, even though the overarching mitzvah might be a shran or a din. So there's such a thing. So all I'm just trying to say is it could be when the kohen does the giluach, this galach, does the giluach, it might be a kiyum. And similarly, the calling out the shalom is a kiyum. Possible. Okay, shenishal me'anshel. So we have, let's go again. He, she is halnu mehashlim im amoim umoyav lo'elu. There's an isa, a lav, and I saw in the Torah. V'zeh shokel yis'ale kvat tzivonu shenovoy, or the shenotzo, when we siege a city, yilochem alir, shenishal me'anshecho hasholom koydem l'chom. So it means that before the war, you should send out the shalom. Now, what we have over in Tibin is very verbose and repetitive, and it's difficult to make out what the Ram is saying. Shenishal me'anshecho hasholem koydem l'chomo u'shenevakesh mehem she'ashlimu imon. So it's often double talk. The interesting thing is in Kapach, and I think Hillman in his Siyunim in Frankel's Ram Sefer Mitzvas, that they should subjugate themselves to us. Shikonu unevakesh yashlimu itonu, and they should be mashlim. Okay, so there are two things going on over here, and it makes much more sense. And I'll explain to you what's happening. It could be that Yikonu, see, because let's just continue reading. I'll show you something's missing over. If you remember, what happens? You call out the Shalom, and they answer positively. They're ready for Shalom. Then there's Mas in Avdus. Okay? Here, he's quoting Shenishal me'anshei HaShalom koilem l'chomo shnevakish b'hem shashlim imono v'im so'ir b'yodenu. It's talking about giving over the city, correct? Yim so'ir b'yodenu osei lihilochem b'hem u'leholgo k'mo shebi'alnu b'mitzvas hamashlimo tishim u'meya mimitzaseh. Okay. See here, he left out Mas v'Avdus because it's really not important. The mitzvah is to call the Shalom, and if they answer positively, to act in a positive vein. But maybe he's being mirames to Mas v'Oived, because Mas v'Oived is an issue of kniyah, of to be subjugated. And he says that two things you need Shalom and you need subjugation. And you have to, giving Shalom means that I'm giving over the city and we are subjugated to you. And that's Shikonu, subjugated, and Shalom. Shenishal me'anshei HaShalom koilem l'chomo shenivakesh mehem she'ashlimu imonu v'im yimtzu ha'ir b'yodenu oseh lilochem bohem u'leholgo. Here, I'm very confused. If they answer and they want Shalom and they give Mas and Abdus, whatever they're supposed to give, so you can't go against them. You cannot declare war. You cannot fight against them. Okay? So what's the extra word over here? Ulaholgo. Okay. And so in Ibn Tibbon, it's also liloche bohem ulaholgo, and in Ibn Eoiv, it says te osel lono milchamton varigosom. It's the same type of thing. So we're back to where we started from. I'll tell you what I mean. There's a problem over here. The Ram says very clearly in Perek Dalet of Hilchos Loitseach, Shmiras HaNefesh, Halacha Yud Aleph, that there's an Isa to kill a goy unless under the pretext of Milchama. That's in Perek Dalet, Halacha Yud Aleph. Avol hagoyim she'ein beineu ubeino milchama v'roye behema daka miYisrael kiyetz behen ein misavivim lohem hamisa. Not only you can't kill him, you cannot be goyrem his death. It's called shvichas damim. So what's he saying? You cannot. So they can't be a Muhammad, and it's another thing lahogam. So when it's a double portion, it's also lahogam because they only had this little Muhammad. Is he saying something here? Because l'cheira, that's what Ram says in Loitseach, that the only heter to kill a guy, and only through the only had to kill a guy, even with grama, is only in the context of Muhammad. So once it's also hilachim bohem, so the double portion, it's also lahogam. I'm not sure what the Ram added over here. Kamo should be anu b'mitzvah hamashlimo tisha umeya mi mitzvahs aseh. Let's go back and see it. Kupsadi. Hatzivush stavinu, that's the Sharano, the Mochemes Shah Umois, which are not Zain Amamin and Amolek. Vizu Anikot Mochemes Rishus. This is the din of Mochemes Rishus. Vu Sha'onu Stavinu. She'im Nilcham Blehem. Nichais imoem bris al nafshom bilvad im ishlimu imonu umosu lonu es haaretz v'nechayiv oisom b'tashlum hamisim u ba'avdus v'om yis'ala yeh l'chol mas l'avadufa. So this ulahogom is referring to the Chris's bris because he says he discussed this. He says, "Kamo should anu b'mitzvah mashlimo tishim umeya mitzvah say." I'm not sure. Maybe it's the Chris's bris. Chris's bris, you're not going to kill him, I guess. But you asked to kill him anyway. I'm not sure. It's also the hogum. I mean, you don't need the Chris's bris, please. That's I don't get it exactly. Well, it should be anu b'mitzvah hamashlimo tishim umeya mitzvah aseh. Chutz mi'amur moyev shlo nisnaig imom menegazeh. Avol, you shouldn't do what Amor moyev and send out the shalom. Avol, his hilnu hokel mikro lahem l'shalom u'melevakesh mehem lahashlim u'amo yis'aleh le'sidush shloimom v'toivaso. So I'm confused here, okay? And I'll tell you why. Lesidre shloimom b'toivasa means that you're enjoined from doing it, or it just means that the mitzvahs aseh of Kriyas Shalom is inapplicable over here. See, I could have imagined this is not a separate mitzvah, but it's a rider on mitzvah kufsadi. The mitzvah kufsadi is to be koyel l'shalom mishar umais, except for Amor Moyev. And the Ram says no, it's a separate lav in minyan mitzvahs. No. Okay. A little bit not sure what exactly happened. Oh, he probably quotes it some other place. Okay, we'll worry about this later. He doesn't have it here. Okay. So, I could have imagined this is just that there's a shlila, that there's no mitzvah of Kriya Shalom, not there's an Isa. And the Rambam says, no, it's a separate Isa. And I guess I guess that that even though you find an ashora, which is really a subset of a mitzvah saseh, you count it separately in minyan mitzvahs. And you don't say this is really part of the broader idea of Mechemes Rishus, and it's Bechlal the Aseh. No, it's a separate mitzvah, separate ashol. Now, I want to tell you, we'll see soon that this becomes very complicated. Let's go slowly. Now, just before we start things, okay, it's gonna get a little complicated now, but slowly but surely, okay. The Rambam in Perek Vav of Hilchos Melochim and Melochamois, he says very clearly that answering for Shalom is not enough, and Mas v'Abdus is not enough, but you need Kabbalah Zayin mitzvahs. Okay, that's very clear. In Sefer Mitzvos, there's no mention of it. So, you can take either approach. You can say that the Rambam was machadish this later, maybe you don't need it here, or you need it, but it's a little odd. He doesn't mention it at all in any of the cases, both in Kuf Sadi and over here. Okay, good. So just be important, very important, okay, that he doesn't mention Kabbalah Zayin. Okay, doesn't mention it. That is point number one, just because it's going to become very important later, and just to set this down. And the lav, he says, umilavakesh ishanu mikro lahem l'shol vakesh lahem lahashlim, or it means milavakesh lahem shikonu. So it's both shalom and kniya, which is masvi avos. Okay, very good. So just also to make these straight, we don't know if the Rambam agrees with it over here, but he certainly says in Mishnah Torah. He says, what happens in the opposite way? What happens if you have a different scenario? You don't call out the shalom, and you surround the city, and the people come out and say, listen, we're opening the doors. We want to make shalom. It wasn't upon request, but they want to make shalom, and they're ready to be subjugated. And we give you the town. So the Rambam in Mishnah Torah is very clear in Perek Vov Alocha Vov. Amru Moyev ain't shochem lem shalom, shenem lesidur shloim v'tevasa kol yamecha v'chule. Tamaloi lesidroish shloim v'tevasa. The I'm skipping a little bit. The afa pish ain't sholem b'shloimom. im hishlimu me'atzmum tchila mekabel noisa. So it's not a din that you can't make shalom with them. The lav is to be shalom. That's what the whole lav is about. And if they the Ram, that's the Ram certainly in Mishnah Torah. You want to say he disagrees? We don't know what the Ram's opinion over here, and the truth is it's irrelevant because the Ram is trying to tell you what the lav is, and the lav is a lav of clear shalom. What happens if the Ammon, the Moabites, the Ammonit, no, they actually take upon themselves all the various tenets of Shalom? It's really irrelevant to Sefer HaMitzvos, and the place we're discussing it is in Mishnah Torah, because here we're talking about the lav, and the lav is about clear Shalom. So, if they make Shalom on their own, you didn't be all encourage Shalom. Now, I'm going to say something which sounds like a double portion. And a priori, it's a double portion. The lav of this lav of Lehem is really only in one situation. It's only b'shas Muhammad. This lav is a lav about Muhammad. The same way there's a mitzvah say of how to deal with Mochemes Rishus or Kriya Sholem, which is b'shas the Muhammad. This also is only b'shas Muhammad. And the location, the address the Rama puts it in Mishnah Torah would certainly support it, because the Rama puts it in Hilchos Malachim Mulchamois, and it's in from Perek K is Hilchos Mulchamois. And the Rama over here quotes this in the middle of about Muhammad. And this will become more interesting. Briskerov, who has a piece on this Rambam in Perek Vav Halacha Vav, says very clearly it's b'shas Muhammad. And the Avi Ezri also says like that in his piece on this Rambam over here. Even though we'll see later that Midrashim, the Leisidra Shloimo might be also Shaloi b'shas Muhammad, but the Rambam always says that the Sifri is Kilu, the Stam Sifri is the Kabbalah, and Midrashim are not Mechayiv anything, and the Rambam does not quote the Midrashim. We'll see later that the Reim does quote the Midrashim, and his Sefer HaMitzvos, and Nagos Maimonides quotes it in the name of the Reim in Perek Vav of the Hilchos Malachim. But whatever it is for the Rambam, that's irrelevant. This lav is only Shas Muhammad. Now, things, this, until this point, was slightly complicated. But here, I feel I'm coming to a point where I don't know where I am. Okay? Let's go slowly. It seems to be a very simple thing. The Ram has a Sifri. V'loshin Sifri, Michlal, Shenema, Ki Sikrav El Ir Lihilochem Oleho, V'Krosei Le'el L'Sholim, Yochol Avkan, Talmuloyma L'Sidrosh Shloimon. So, Michlal Shenema Batoivloi. But you see, the pasuk says Lo Silbash L'Sidrosh Mehem Shloimon B'Teivasa. Okay, so the two things mentioned here in the pasuk. So we have to ask ourselves, what's the second thing? What's Teivasa? So the Sifri continues. And what the Ram does, he quotes the Sifri and doesn't explain anything. Michlal Shenema Batoivloi Loy Teinenu But Tevul is telling us something about an Evet Sheborach or something, I don't know. Yochel, we'll see. Yochel, Af Kan, maybe, I guess, I don't know, we can say if it's an Evet who is a Sheborach, an Evet Kan Sheborach, who happens to be from Ammon and Moav, Af Kan, Tamaloimo, V'Tevosam, Kol Yomecha La'olo. Okay. So, question is what happened though? So, I'm going to, what I'm going to do is, there seems to be and the truth is, I'll be frank with you, I don't understand either of the approaches. I don't understand what Pshat Noam is anyway. But there's a piece from the Avi Ezri discussing this Sifri or something on Sifri or the Rambam, Mishnah Torah, and the piece from Biskarov. And we'll see both of the approaches, and I'll ask questions, is I'm usually name Bakalka, but I don't understand anything. Okay, and you'll see. We'll see. Rav Shach learns that Tevosam is the lav of Leiteinenu, which is an hashora for Oinoas Dvorim and the Evet Sheboch Mechutz Loretz. The Rambam in Hilchos Avodim Perek Ches Haloch Yud Aleph, Evet Zeh Sheboch Loretz Mechutz Loretz Loretz Hari Hu Ger Tzedek v'hoisiv lo hakosuv ashora acheres lemí shema'ana oisoi mipnei shehu shofel ruach shval ruach yoisim min hager v'tzivo olav hakosuv shenemo imcho yeshe b'kirbecho b'yachat sherecho v'atoiv lo yitrinenu zu hi ainoas dvod. Okay, and this Rambam is this lav, according to some nuschos, the nuschos of the Defus and Kama Kisviyad is also quoted in Perek Vav of Hilchos Malachim Malach Vav, which is important if that is a proper text. But there he also brings Im Choyeshe Bekir B'Chobatayv Loi Teinenu. Okay. Now, there is a lav Voinoas Dvorim in an Eved Sheborach Mechutz Loretz Le'eretz Yisrael Eved. So l'cheira, there's a lav that to say this doesn't apply to an Eved who is an Ammonium Moavi Sheborach. The problem is there's three lav Moino. There's a lav Moino by all Yisrael. There's a lav Moino by Ger. It's Mavur, this in Mitzvos Sefer Nun Hey, in Hilchos Avodim, in the what we quoted before, in Hilchos Avodim Perek Ches Haloch Yud Aleph, the end, he says like this: Nimsis Lomad Shama'ane Sager Hazer Oive B'Shloish Alav the Evet Sheborach Mishum Loisoinu Ishes Amisoi Mishum V'Ger Loisoine Umishum Loisoinenu. So now, if you have an Eved who is an Ammoni Moavi Sheborach, so the best you can say is that there's no third lav. The third lav of Evet Sheborach doesn't apply of Lo Tunenu. But why should he lose the din of a Poshet Ger and a Poshet Yisrael? So the Chayre is there are two lavs. So what does it mean in the Torah that it means Lo Sidrei Shloimom of Toivasa, Lo Sidrei Toivasa? It means that there's no lav of the separate lav but the other two lavim, which apply oino on a ger, who a ger, every eved Kanani is a ger, l'cher do apply. So this sets up a quandary. So then what is the Sifri saying? This is of Shachs. So what's the Sifri saying? The Sifri then is a shlila, that the lav of Tevosam, Batovle, okay, the lav of Evet Shaboch, Loiteinenu, doesn't apply to an Eved who is a Amoni Moavi. That's what he says, okay? So it's a little odd that the Ram in Mishnah Torah shouldn't say any place. It's only a, in other words, the whole discussion about Leisidrish Mehem Shlemom Mitevosam is in Perek Vav of Hilchos Melachim. It's in Hilchos Milchamos. Hilchos Milchamos. So he makes a comment that Amoin and Moav, you don't ask, send out for Shalom, okay? And then he says also that the Leisidrish Tevosam. So one should gather from that, lo, that there's a lav loiteinenu, and you look at Hilchos Avodim, that loiteinenu in Hilchos Avodim is a lav of Evet Shabach. Then this din doesn't apply. That's a little, you know, there's a lot of assumptions over here to say that's a pshat in the Rambam is very odd. Next, and this I just know this the second one is a real problem. Okay. For example, you have sometimes in the Torah that you have one law and the two things that are nesa. Al toichlu menu no uvosho busho amoyim. Okay. The law, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. Okay. Okay. But if you learn the Rav Shach, it's borders on the absurd. Can you have the word low mean two different things in the same sentence? Because what comes out, you say, Leisidresh Shloimo, which is a laugh, means it's also you're prohibited. And Leisidresh Tevosam means you're not prohibited because you're also anyway for the other two lavim, but you're just not. But this lav, the third lav, doesn't apply. That's when it comes in the third lav doesn't apply. So it means the word low in the same sentence means two different things. One means that you're also you're enjoined, and the other that what comes to shloimim. When it comes to tevosam, you're not enjoined, but you're not obligated in tevosam, which means there's a shlila. So the Ram says in Shiur Shmini that the lav and the Torah are negative commands. If the Torah tells you a story or a non-obligation, or for example, it says lo, someone did not go to the grocery store, so that's not a lav. If the Torah says you shouldn't go to a grocery store, that would be a lav. Okay. So here, how can the same word mean lo and a lav? So I would have said fakir. Once you learn like that, you should have said that even this is not a lav. There should be loy sidur shloimom. It's not that in other words, you don't have to. There's a mitzvah say to be shloimo, and you don't have to do it. You're not obligated to do it. But the Ram is very clear that it's a lav. So it's a little bit odd to assume that he says the lav and yochel afkan kain, and in one yochel afkan kain is an ashora, and the other the Ram learns it's just that there's no lav of leitenenu, but the other lav. It's a very difficult interpretation. And third of all, in Mishnah Torah, in the grave of the Kisvei Yad, it doesn't say lo tonenu in Perik Vav of Hilchos Malachim Malach. All it says is lefisha nemo im choyeshe bekir b'chabetevloi. So it means that the betevloi doesn't apply. It's nothing to do with the lav. Here he has lo tonenu, so we don't know. We don't know anything. But this is a very difficult meeting, no matter what you do. And then it comes out that there are two issues over here. One issue is about Muhammad, and the Ram calls it Malachim in Muhammad's. And the other issue at the end of the pasuk about Evet Shabach is nothing to do with Muhammad. And the Ram only mentions it aside without explaining it in Hilchos Muhammad's, not in Hilchos Avodah. So this is very odd. This is what Shach presents. Okay. That's presentation number one. Number two, and this will be the beginning because I'll probably have to take this up again next week. I don't see I'm not going to finish this today. Briskov says that the Ram quotes in Hilchos Muhammad. So it's a din in Muhammad. And even Tevosam is din in Muhammad. And he says, I'm going to say it short, and then we'll have to explain it and go all over again, that you learn out that im choyeshe v'asheinotzel elecha also applies to ger toshav. Okay. And he says that what's going on over here, the two parts to Kriyas Shalom. One part of Kriyas Shalom is calling out for Shalom, and the other part of Kriyas Shalom is to request that these goyim, these oidei avodah zarah, should makabel upon the zayin mitzvah. Okay, and the lav over here is only b'shas milchama, and it's to tell you you enjoin from both of them. You enjoin for calling out for shalom and for kniyah, and you enjoin from calling out, asking them to be a ger toshav. Okay, I'm going to have to discuss next week how he tries to put this in, but this in Mishnah Torah maybe I can swallow, but the Sefer HaMitzvos to say that there's a lav of kriyas of doresh that they should become a ger toshav. When the Rambam doesn't quote it in Kufsadi in the mitzvah say of kriyas shalom, he doesn't say anything about ger toshav, that there should be a lav in the Torah, and that should be the way we know it, to call out for Zion that they should become Zion mitzvah noyach. It borders on, I don't want to say it, but this is all very difficult. Okay, and we'll have to go over Mitzvah Shem next week and see what the Sifri is saying. Could this actually be pshat the Sifri that you shouldn't ask them to become a ger toshav? It's an amazing thing. The truth is, maybe they're in better shape than me. They suggested something. This, to me, is Mamash Medrash Tli of the Rambam, and both the Sefer HaMitzvos and Mishnah Torah. I understand. You see, the thing is, I understand the positive points in each one, but the strikes against it are also a problem. And to say, I thought that's the pshat. I don't know. They should have the Boch Vatzlocha, and the Rebbeinu Shalom should have Ashkocha Yisera on Knesset Yisrael, befrat the Loichmei Milchama, and the Rebbeinu should be with us.